Okay. So, hi, I'm Tears of Forrester, and I have with me here Laura George, and she helps artists get their work out into the world. She's amazing at it. I love what she says on her bio that she helps, artists, get their creations and their creative endeavors out into loving homes. And I think there's a real disconnect to that sometimes. And I think I love that she brings that together, and that there is someone loving on one side, and the receiving end is also this transaction of more than just money, but of something that is of great value. So Laura, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of who you are and what you do, and how you got to where you are now.
Sure. I'm Laura C. George online, go by the full name. And I'm a business consultant for fine artists, and I teach them how to build businesses that are, as you were saying, are personal. And I guess a lot of times I like to use the phrase to learn how to build your business without selling your soul, right? Selling your art without selling your soul.
Yeah.
Which I think is just like a little bit more homey about it, so that it's not just about the money, but
Right.
also about the connections you're building and the good work that you're doing in the world, kind of like a higher purpose to being a creative, which I think a lot of people identify with.
Yeah.
And I got started actually because, really, in college, everyone has a long story, so it's always like, how do you break it down to the little
Yeah.
But really, I think it comes down to in college, when I was trying to figure out a major, and I couldn't see myself doing much of anything for my whole life, and it felt like such a grave decision.
Yeah.
I really worried about it quite a good bit, and ended up deciding to do studio art as a major. And I learned so much about the world of artists, and then started looking to sell my own work, which I ended up hating. I didn't like being judged. I don't like being judged.
I don't
So
think anyone does.
it wasn't
Yeah.
quite the right thing, but I had learned so much about how to do it, and so much about the people, and was able to connect in that world, and I was pretty good at it. So I just transferred that into teaching people, which is a so much better fit. It makes me so much happier. So that's what I've been doing for like 6 or 7 years now.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I read a little bit of your bio, your kind of journey through kind of that.
Like most of us, it's quite complicated.
Yeah, it's very complicated. And I think a lot of us can, I can relate to that, just, I remember going to college and being like, I majored in something very random, international studies. And, because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so I just picked something. Right. And, and it's just that journey. It is a daunting task. And I wish it wasn't set up that way. Like you must choose, that, it is set up that way that, we have to choose right away, when really I changed majors like 17 million times.
And we're lucky. My cousin lives in France, and in France they choose their career path when they're 13, 14 years old.
That's crazy.
She's been putting it off, and everyone makes fun of her. Why haven't you picked yet?
Right.
It's like, are you kidding me? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's like that one person in college that is like 3 years in, hasn't picked their major yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you're like, what's wrong with you? And then I'm realizing like maybe they were, actually right, and taking the time to explore. Yeah.
I think so. I definitely think a lot of people fall into their careers these days too. What you take in college and what you start out with your first job doesn't end up, being, for a lot of people, being what they end up actually doing. Unless you're going to be a doctor, lawyer, and stuff, where you have to have that path.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, my dog, I took off his collar. He was jingling. He's walking around.
Sweetheart.
Yeah. You want to say hi? Say hi.
Sweet.
There's his nose. He's my baby. His name is Titus, and he won't sit on his bed. He just sits right next to me on my feet.
That's so sweet. Yeah. Mine's outside the door because we have this big window in my office and studio space here, over there.
Uh-huh.
And And she will look out the window and bark at like everything. And so
Oh,
I can't have her in when I'm doing calls, clients, interviews, anything. I have to leave her out because
yeah.
it's so loud.
Yeah, he would bark if I left him out of the room. He's such a Velcro dog. It's so
I love that.
ridiculous.
How adorable.
He's such a baby.
Oh, what a
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah, he's my baby. Um, so, let's see. What question I want to ask you next? You kind of touched on this, and I think, but I've been asking everyone this because I think it's different for everyone, and I think it's really valuable. Like a time that you felt like you kind of lost your vision, and like what are the steps you did to get that back? Or maybe if you have a story from, someone else one of your clients or something that would be really, valuable, like, a time where you're like, gosh, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? And, one of those moments.
Well, I'm actually really prone to that. I tend to easily let other things get in the way and, lack creativity for sometimes like months at a time, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons why being an artist myself wasn't quite the right career fit because I would have these periods where I wouldn't create for so long. And, what ends up happening is that I don't even realize that I'm doing it. And it kind of like dawns on me very, very suddenly, like, wait a second, I haven't done this in like a really long time. Why haven't I created? I think I'm a printmaker primarily in my art life. And I think I'd had my own printing press for, gosh, I think it was like 3 years, and I hadn't used it. Like an absurd amount of time. I had done other creative things, but I hadn't used the press because I kept saying, well, I don't have this thing, and I probably should get some vegetable oil to wipe my plates down with, and I probably should get another piece of copper to start a new piece, and just all sorts of reasons why I couldn't use the etching press. And I just let it languish like that. And so when it dawns on me, it's kind of like massive resistance, like, oh, well, I haven't done it in so long, so I shouldn't start just yet. Like, there has to be this like perfect time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people do that. And so usually what seems to work for me is doing a different thing than the creative practice that I feel like I'm, missing out on, and picking a different creative practice. For instance, I'm just coming out of one, and over there on my table, I have some pastels. I've never used pastels before. I just kind of had them in a drawer somewhere that I randomly acquired, and I just pulled them out and started playing with them. And it's really helping. And so kind of switching gears, switching mediums, tends to kind of bring me out of that. So that's usually what I tell my clients if they're saying that they're going through some sort of creative block. I'm like, well, what about trying this other medium? What about playing around with something completely different? Especially something that uses like a different feeling to it. I think there's something to be said for the feeling of creating. If you're like an oil painter and you just switch to acrylics, like a little bit helpful, but nowhere near as helpful as if you like picked up a pen and started like doodling.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
the feel of the tool it makes a difference.
I think that's so crucial too, because, I did textiles for a while, and I haven't touched them in a while, and I don't have any desire to, so I just burnt myself out too fast. And I had all this oil paint and all this extra canvas in my garage, just been sitting there. And the other day I decided, to try something that I haven't done in so long. So yeah, I think that's so helpful, just to kind of, no matter what it is, like if you're, stuck on something, to try something completely different.
I'm sure other people give that advice. It works,
Yeah.
and it works better than forcing it, which, I've told clients to do in the past. I've been like, oh no, just force it. Like, just sit down in front of the canvas and paint, and it just never turns out well, right? They're always like frustrated, and what they produce is awful, and they feel more resistant and more angry. And I see that myself too. If I push it, it's just going to turn out poorly and make me kind of angry, you know?
Right. Yeah. I think that is really, really true, that, you know, when you try to force things that, you know, you don't want to do, it becomes like more like a chore, and then you get angry about it and you're like, I don't want to do this.
And we recognize that in the other areas of our life, but for some reason with creativity, we tend to not recognize that. And we tend to be like, but I'm an artist. I can do this. You know, all I have to do is just sit down and do it. Right.
Yeah.
And we don't apply the lessons that we learn from the other areas of our life, you know?
It's so true. And I think it's that like, oh, well, I have to do this. And, you know, it's also that pressure of like, you know, I have to do this and it has to be perfect because I have to sell it. And, you know, there is that pressure too, I think is, that's hard when you have all those things and you're trying to be creative and come with things that are authentic to you. It's so hard. That is like one of the hardest things, I think.
Absolutely. And I think that a lot of artists put pressure on themselves to create things that will sell, instead of just creating what's, you know, in their soul.
Right.
It usually backfires. Occasionally I see people who can do it. You know, I won't say it doesn't work for anyone, because I definitely know artists who pretty much solely create for other people's wishes and for things that will sell and do fine. But I think most artists that I encounter, it ends up with the work not being very good and with the person feeling really frustrated and anxious, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if you're going to enter a career like this, that's so difficult, any sort of creative career, that's a little bit more difficult to do, you really want to be doing one you love, right?
Right.
Be setting up a system, a job for yourself that you don't enjoy, whether you're an entrepreneur or you work for someone else in a creative position. You know, you don't want to be setting it up as a situation where you're unhappy, right?
Yeah.
Then you might as well get a really high paying job in an office.
Yeah. At that point. Yeah.
It's just easier. The paycheck just comes in and you're making more than you often get to make in creative fields. They're not all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really crucial to, you know, manage your mind and step away from things. I think a lot of times if you're a creative, you have, I'm guilty of it, you know, that tunnel vision, and you're like, if this doesn't get done, like no one's going to do it. And I mean, that's true, but then it's like you put so much pressure on yourself that really is, you've created a world for yourself that really doesn't need to be there.
Absolutely. I see that all the time, the amount of pressure. And I wonder if it's cultural and not just like an artist thing, because I think I see it with a lot of different people that really just, we all kind of feel like we should be doing more, working harder, being better at everything. Doing it all. The whole like superwoman complex comes to mind.
The glorified hustle and the, you know, hashtag girl boss and stuff like that is, I think, it is definitely glorified. And it puts a lot of pressure to have this persona of, I've got all my stuff together.
I agree. And I don't think very many people do, if anyone. I don't have all my stuff together. And I wish people would think that I did, and then I feel guilty for wishing that they would think that I did. You know?
Right. Yeah. You're like, no, my life isn't perfect, I promise.
Yeah. I'm like, I want you to think it's perfect. Wait, I don't want you to think it's perfect.
Yeah. There is that battle between
it's just so easy to buy into it all, you know, because
it is
in our culture. And I actually just was dealing with this earlier today. I had a client or a student who bought one of my courses and had 2 tech problems happen. First, they couldn't figure out how to log in, and then a video wouldn't work. And I was like, oh my goodness, you're getting all the tech troubles. I'm so sorry. And then the very next day, today, they were like, I want my money back. I just don't feel confident because of all this tech problems. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not perfect. You know, like instant panic, and I had to calm myself down and be like, you need to talk to this person and figure out the root of it. Are they really concerned about that, or did they get in there and feel like, well, is this stuff right, is it wrong, I don't really know, and like, how can you make them feel more confident? And I mean, it was easy to diffuse the situation once I diffused myself,
Right.
got my reaction down and said, this is not something to be pretending to be perfect over. This is something to admit, yeah, I'm sorry that my video didn't work. The login wasn't my fault, but I'm sorry my video didn't work.
Right.
And like, I'm really glad to fix this for you. And like, sometimes, tech happens and things don't go smoothly. And that doesn't mean that you can't trust me, and
Right.
diffuse that energy.
Yeah. It's like, I think Brene Brown talks about this in her books. Just like the instead of like, I'm the problem, instead of like, there's a problem, and addressing like, you're not the one that's bad, like I'm versus I'm bad, versus the problem is bad. And I think that
That's a really difficult one.
Yeah.
I need to read up on that, because it's so easy to take it on yourself,
It is.
Especially if you're running a business. And I know not everyone watching is running a business, but for those who are, I think it's really important to pay extra attention to that, because it can be so easy to take things personally and feel really defensive. And really down on yourself, depending on how you react to that kind of thing. I get defensive. Some people get like really sad, like they're like really, really disappointed in themselves. And stuff. Just watch that and and check yourself and be like, look, that's not really how it is. Come on.
Right. Put that mirror up to yourself and be like, hey, is it me? Or, and
I gotta go read some Brene,
because you should. I read her book over and over again. That her new one, Rising Strong, it really resonates, especially with the creative and the artist. Like that multiple getting rejection after rejection, how to manage that, and like realize like, I'm not wrong, I'm not bad. Like maybe they had a situation that they couldn't say yes to, or like trying to move the bad off of who you are and that shame, and realize that it's not you.
And even if it was your fault, that doesn't mean it's easy to take it from like, I made a mistake that I need to correct, to it becoming, I am a mistake.
Yeah.
I am a bad person for the mistake, and taking not just ownership, but like taking it to the next level of like, it's me as a human being is wrong, which is rarely the case, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a major struggle. I think for most, if not all, entrepreneurs and creatives, just kind of not like detaching yourself from things where it becomes very impersonal, but
no, it's just taking it the right way, having the right perspective, and not allowing the problems that arise to become a reflection of who you are.
Yeah.
Which is just hard.
It's hard. Easier said than done, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I read some of your before we got on, some of your reviews and little notes that people wrote to you, and I thought it was a repeated pattern I saw, was that a lot of them like said, thank you for helping me get unstuck and like gain clarity, and it's all right.
I can't turn it off. Whenever my phone rings, even if the ringer's off, my computer rings.
Oh, that's annoying, but it's all right. Totally cool. Anyway, I noticed that you like a lot of the similar patterns that go on with what they're saying is that, you help them really gain clarity, and that they are able to, move past that. Anyway, if you have a story, or, like how you go about that, like, I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of people that just really were unclear on what they were doing and why, and, how you get people to that place of clarity.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different with everyone, because everyone's personality is a little bit different.
Right.
And I somewhat respond to it instinctually. versus, formulaically. With a lot of people, I don't really know exactly what I'm doing to get there. I just kind of like instinctively do it. But I do follow a similar pattern with everyone in terms of figuring out what they want, which I think is a big struggle for a lot of creatives. I've even taken some clients through the path of realizing that they don't actually want it to be a business. They work with me, and through our work together, they recognize that that's not the path for them, which I guess is similar to my path. Most of my clients, of course, do end up sticking with it. But I can think of two that I've had that ended up, for lack of a better word, for quitting, but in good faith, quitting,
right.
not because they couldn't do it. And so what I usually do is we start with the end, and we say, well, if this is 10 years down the line, what does your life look like? How is your creative world? But how's your life overall too? Which I think is important. A lot of artists kind of box the creative side into a certain spot, and they don't think it reflects back on the rest of their life, but it does, because you have to think about if you're imagining a world where, oh, I'm creating all day every day, but you also are going to have teenage kids. It doesn't really gel. So you kind of have to think about your whole world and what all the aspects of your life look like when you're looking at how your artistic practice is going to factor in, whether it's a career or not. And so we look at that first and decipher, like, what do we want it to be? And then we can go back and say, well, what things are in service of that? So it's going to be completely different vision if art licensing is the best fit for you versus completely wholeheartedly going into galleries, right? And most people are going to have a mix of a bunch of different things, but you can definitely pick things that make sense for what kind of life you want. How much time you want to be spending on stuff, how much, those different aspects make a huge, those different aspects of your vision make a huge difference in what makes sense for your trajectory, your revenue streams, your marketing plan, all that kind of stuff. So we're getting kind of technical, but I think it really helps to think of the end and then to place the little pieces of the puzzle in as they would contribute to the end, and think, well, maybe I have this vision in my head that an artist is supposed to go to art fairs, but when I really think about what I want my life to be like, an art fair doesn't make any sense because it involves travel and I'm a homebody, or
right. I think that's really cool that you start from the end, because I think people maybe get into it and then don't really think about what they want their life to be like, and then they get into it and they're like, wait a second, I didn't want to do this. And
yeah, a lot of people that come on with me are in that situation. They've already started, right? And they're coming to me because they're coming to me and they're like, this is not what I want, and I don't know how to make it what I want. And I do end up in that situation with a lot of people, and that's how we deal with it. We're like, okay, well, let's talk about what you want. And a lot of times they haven't even thought about it. It's people to me because it seems so like, well, of course you would think about this, but so many people don't. They're not. That's not something that they've experienced before. They don't recognize that would be helpful. And so I ask them, well, what would that look like? And they just kind of stare at me. Or like my favorite one is when I ask them how much money they'd want to make. And they're like, well, as much as I can. And I'm like, that's not an answer. And I understand that concept because, of course, we all want to be, making more money. Like that's what our culture has taught us, always be making more money, right?
Right.
But when you think about like what kind of lifestyle you want to lead, what money does that, entail? What kind of finances does that entail? And of course that affects what kind of business makes sense for you. Talking from a business perspective.
Right.
It's just funny that people we don't I guess a lot of people don't consider these things, and I think they're really going to be helpful, and they help you decide even if it's right for you at all, and I certainly don't think that, as much as I love business, I don't think that every artist should be a business owner. And I think that there's like this culture right now, kind of similar to like the glorification of the hustle that we were talking about. I think that there's a similar kind of movement that every artist should be making money from it,
Yeah.
And if you have a different career, that you're not truly an artist because you're not forgoing all your other stuff in order to put everything you have into art. And, it's just, for some people that's perfect, and for other people that's ridiculous. And there shouldn't be any shame in deciding that your artistic practice is something that you want to be a hobby.
Right. And I think I came to that realization kind of on my own, and I had a major breakdown and just burnt myself out and realized, like, wait a second, I just want to do this for fun. Like, I don't need to make money doing this. Like, I just want to do it. I started to do it because it really helped me process other things in my life, and it was therapy for me. And I was like, like, it's a lot of pressure. And, like, you have to, have that mindset to really manage that pressure. But I think it's also the pressure I probably put on myself. But I think, I don't know where I was going with this, but anyway, now I do it for fun.
Yeah.
And it's so liberating, because now I can do whatever the heck I want, and I don't have to make anything for anyone, and I can paint or sew and do whatever.
Yeah.
So,
and that's so freeing, not to poo-poo, of course, the people who choose to do it as a career, because that's wonderful too.
Yeah, totally.
Your personality and what fits for you. But I think it is really freeing to not have to be concerned about what you produce. I've got they're called a Buddha board. It's like this like water board. And I don't know, it's some sort of stone or something. Maybe it's a synthetic material. I don't really know. And you can paint on it with a sumi brush and water. And it evaporates and disappears. So as you paint, it like goes away. And it is the most freeing thing I think I've ever experienced, because it doesn't matter what you do. If you make something just horribly ugly, it's gone in a minute. Right. 60 seconds later, it's not there anymore. And so, all that stress that comes with creating and being afraid of making a mark that's not quite the right mark is just gone.
Yeah.
I highly encourage, if that's something that you battle with, I highly encourage a Buddha board. It was like $20 or something on Amazon. Like,
Gouda? It's a Gouda board, like the cheese, like Gouda?
No, Buddha, like
Buddha board. Okay. I was like,
the Buddha, like
Buddha board. Okay.
It's not a Buddha symbol, but
like Zen Buddha.
Zen.
Yes. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, it was remarkable. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna check that out.
I play with it like every day. It's so relaxing.
I'm gonna check that out, because I want one now. Because I think there's something really freeing about creating, like, I mean, there's no such thing as bad art. I mean, it's all relative. The eye is in the behind. Yeah. The art is in, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I totally switched that around. But
but I know what you mean. There's art that you're disappointed in.
Right.
It might not be bad, but you look at it and you go, that's not what I wanted.
That's not what I envisioned.
And I thought that it would be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's something really freeing about, creating bad art, in what you perceive as bad. Because I think there's something like, oh, I created that and it's out of my system now. And, like, I can move on, and, it's okay to explore that and to create things that aren't bad. I don't have to show anyone this. And, like, you just.
That's a big one. Yeah, like, curate your own stuff. If you're putting your work out publicly, if you're, whether it's for free, just for a hobby or for professional purposes, if you're showing your work off publicly, you don't have to show people everything.
Right. Yeah.
For goodness sake, like, give yourself a break, like, I see people who will put every single piece of art they've ever created on their website. And I'm like, don't do that. You're like looking at your work going, my work's not good enough. And I'm like, well, if you just took 15 of those pieces off the site, suddenly all of the work on there is good enough, you know?
Right.
Like, curate yourself, and don't be afraid to, even trash work that you don't like, or, whatever you feel okay doing,
Right.
in the corner, throw it in the garbage can, repurpose it. I know people who tear it up and use it in other pieces. Feel free. Do not feel like it has to reflect on you as an artist. Like, every piece has to be a public reflection of you as an artist.
Yeah. I think there's a freeing factor in that. And I think
a freeing factor in like everything we're talking about today.
I know. Yeah, it's great. I'm going to go like burn some journals or something.
Oh my gosh, I threw away my diaries. I kept diaries. I don't have a clue why. I don't know like anyone who kept diaries except for me. But I kept diaries from like second grade through high school. And I went to my like childhood bedroom like a year or two ago, and my husband was with me, and he saw them and like started reading them, and he was like, why have you kept these? And I'm like, I don't know. It just feels like you're supposed to keep them, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, why? And he was like, doesn't some of the stuff that happened in your childhood like haunt you, like all of us, right? And right. I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, throw them in the trash can. And I threw them in the trash can. And it was like, it was partially like gutting and partially incredibly freeing at the same time. Yeah. It was very complicated. But I'm glad that I did, because it was like moving on. Like, I had a great childhood, but there were also things that were like, haunting me, and it didn't completely get rid of them, but it helped to just like sever that.
Yeah. To put that to rest, and, yeah.
They're gone.
Move on. Yeah. I think that that's good. And there's a portion of that, going through your old stuff. That's a tough thing in itself. And
I did not read them before I threw them away.
Oh yeah, you would have wanted to keep them after that.
I was like, no, thank you, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe the ones from like second grade would have been fine, but
yeah, because those are probably cute, and like you said, because I think I have some from at my parents' house. Probably I have like a journal, like I write all my crushes down and who I like in school.
Yeah, that's really cute.
Yeah, they're pretty cute. And who my friends like.
And they're like, ooh,
like,
right? A little cringeworthy.
Yeah, definitely.
I hear you.
I think we got a little off track. I don't know what the original question I asked you was. But
I don't remember, but you were talking about burning journals.
Oh, burning journals. Yes. I tend to keep all my art. I think I like to keep some of it just because I'm like, oh yeah, I did that. And some of it I open and I'm like, why did I keep that? But it's
that I like that I created in like elementary or middle school. And I've kept them, and I haven't done anything with them. I haven't framed them or anything, but they're just hanging out because they make me smile when I like flip through the stack of papers. I'm like, oh, I made that in like, I don't know, 5th grade or something, and it's pretty.
Yeah. And I think, what was I going to say? Yeah, I think there's something nostalgic about that, keeping your art from when you're in art class and you create collages and stuff. Those are fun.
They're cute.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's good to even revisit those, things we did when we were little, because we're so creative when we're little, and we really know how to play. And if we make a mistake, we get another piece of paper out and start over, or we cover it up. And there's so much to be learned from, I think, kids and how they see the world. It's just so beautiful, I think.
There's a student in my program right now who creates, I guess not only, but all the work that she shows, she creates with her daughter, who is like 4 years old, I think.
Oh, that's so cool.
And they make everything together. And she says that she picks the palette, and then her daughter helps her with the rest of it. So she knows that it's going to turn out well because she's picked colors that go well together, so
right.
Brown mess.
Yeah.
But aside from that, her daughter does a lot of the leading, and they They kind of do the composition stuff together and figure out the ways to make the marks. And of course, they're abstract pieces, but they're actually quite nice. They're really pretty.
Yeah.
And I found that very interesting. And she said, of course, just like you were saying, that she learns a lot from hanging out with her daughter and creative time with her daughter.
Right. Yeah. I think that's so cool. I love that. I don't know.
Sun or something. It's like in this really awkward.
But yeah, the sun is slowly rising.
What's going on here? Where's a good position?
That's good, actually. Yeah.
I'm just trying to keep it so it's not like this weird, like jarring light.
So you're not glowing.
I guess it's just a weird time of day. The sun's been setting at a weird time of day because it's not late here, and so I'm not really sure what's going on. But
yeah, the sun won't be setting here because there is no sun. So
I think we have a time change coming up. Actually,
yeah, I think it is coming up pretty soon.
Not exciting. I do not like the time change. It confuses me.
It does confuse me too. I'm like, what?
And then some people haven't changed. Like I work with people around the world and like have meetings with people around the world, and some people don't change.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Distance of time, and I get really confused.
Oh yeah, that's very confusing.
It's for the internet though. The internet saves me all the time with that stuff.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love you, internet.
Do love the internet. It's a love-hate relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna ask you like one last question, and then we'll go into your free gift, and then we'll end. Okay. So what would you tell someone who's, struggling to find their voice and, wants to be creative, wants to pursue something, and just like, maybe someone told them when they were younger that they, their painting was bad, or they just, they have these mental blocks that they just don't think they can do it. What would you tell someone who's like, I wish I could do that, but I don't think so?
That's so sad.
It's really sad.
And I'm sure people go through that, and that's like really depressing. But I would actually say to like take it slow. I think wading into it would be good advice, depending on whether they're like coming to me saying, I want to try, but I'm like afraid and don't think I can. Or if they're coming to me and they're like, no, I can't do that. Right? I might either tell them like, you need to wade in here, or I might tell them take it slow. But either way, it's kind of the same advice, like to plod through it, right?
Right.
I would say even do a little bit every day, like start one of those challenges that you see on like Instagram or whatever, that's like a create every day, and do one of those, and explore mediums that you feel interested in, that you're like, oh, that would be cool if I could do that, and just play with it, and try not to worry about the results, because you're probably not going to be good. Right? Not never, but like
right
first, like it's probably going to be crap. Like most, even like really, really good artists, when they start a new medium, usually the first thing they do is kind of bad. Right? If it's something they haven't tried before, and so assuming that you're not a really, really phenomenal artist, though you might be, assuming you're not, our next Picasso, you probably are going to take you a little bit longer to kind of work out the kinks, and so your first few pieces are probably going to be pretty bad, and that's okay, and you should be sticking with it, with a medium if it feels good, like not the result. Not if you look at the end piece and you're like, that was pretty, but like if while you're creating, you're feeling good and you want to keep going, regardless of what the end is, you probably want to keep with that medium for a little longer and explore it a little bit more. And then just plod along, take your time, expect it to be something that probably takes you a couple years until you find a medium that makes sense for you, and feels right for you. And then, the more practice you have with it, the better it'll turn out. There are definitely artists who, take to a particular medium really, really quickly. And, the first time I knew a kid growing up who was like a piano prodigy at like, I think he was like 16, the first time he touched a piano, and he like by ear replayed a song. And some people take to a particular medium like that, but most of us don't. And so give it time, and, you know, be mindful of your emotions. Like, don't let it be upsetting to you that like you're not an instant success, right? Because
Right.
for most people it takes a while, you know. It takes
I
time.
think I think that's awesome. Don't overwhelm yourself, and take a small those challenges. I think are great because they're you do something one day, and it could be small, and it's small steps towards that. And I think that's really good for someone maybe who even wants to do it as a hobby, and like never picked up a paintbrush, and knew maybe known like this is something I've wanted to do, and starting small, realizing that you're not going to paint a masterpiece the first time you paint it, just like you're not going to be a ballerina the first time you take ballet. I think the same concept applies to anything you do. You're not going to be the best at it the first
Yeah.
time you try, so do small steps. I think that's great.
Yeah. And maybe explore. One of the best challenges I've seen is picking one type of object and exploring that object throughout however the length of challenge is. And you can do that either in one medium if you're focusing on one, or you can do it in a lot of mediums. Like, I'm going to paint chairs. And every single day, I'm going to paint a chair, right? And you could do that as paintings, or you could do that as every single day, I'm going to create an artwork that has a chair, and do that in any sort of medium, And so one day it's a photograph of a chair, another day it's an illustration of a chair, another day it's a painting, and so on and so forth. And that kind of anchors you so that you're really exploring an object, and you're feeling like you're growing, versus each day thinking, oh, what am I supposed to do now? Like, what should be the subject matter? What should be the emotion that I'm putting into this? Like, it's a lot of like stress and pressure. But if you're exploring the one, every day it'll feel deeper, even though you might be switching mediums and experiencing newness
Yeah.
every day. You're at least growing deeper with that object.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really good too.
I didn't
Realizing
come up with that, just for the record. Like, I saw it somewhere.
still it's great, like seeing that improvement by keeping some like a controlled something controlled in each thing. And I think seeing that improvement really helps be like, yeah, I can do this. My chair was better than yesterday's. And
right?
yeah.
And I feel, even if like your finished piece isn't better, and you're like, this chair looks nicer, this looks more like a chair, right? You're probably going to feel like the experience was more pleasurable each day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that time I felt like it was easier. I may or may not have been happier with the result, but it felt better to be creating. And isn't that kind of the point, right?
Right.
People who start creating art from that experience, like you were saying, of like, oh, I wish I could do that. They're often thinking about the end result. But the point, the point of creativity is the process. And should be enjoying it. And if you're not enjoying it, you're doing something wrong, right? You need to let go.
Right.
And breathe.
Yeah. Enjoy the process. Yeah. I think we tend to think
fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to be fun and enjoyable.
Maybe not fun. Fun might not always be the right word, but it's supposed to feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good word. It's not always going to be the most fun you've ever had, but to feel good and feel like you're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's a sad piece, and like, you might be feeling sad while you do it, but it should still feel good. It should still feel like cathartic if it's a sad piece.
Right. Yeah.
It would be some sort of positivity.
Right. Yeah. Therapeutic. Right. Yeah. Well, I don't want to end our interview because I've had such a great time.
Well, me too. I can come back another time.
Okay. Yay. I'm so excited.
There are always opportunities for more interviews.
Yes. So Laura, why don't you talk about your free gift, and then we'll just close it out from there.
Yes, I love this one. For those of you who do want to be selling your finished pieces. I have this fantastic video series that people really like on pricing. And I think it really applies for most of you, no matter your medium. I talk a little bit about other mediums, but of course it's filmed for like fine artists who create like 2D work. What's behind me? Point to the stuff behind me. Because that's who I work with the most. But a lot of the information is very applicable to any medium, and you can pretty easily tell the way that I talk about it which things are not, which is very little. But it's really helpful because it takes you through the process of finding prices that make sense, that feel comfortable for you, but are also likely to work well for selling. And I think it's a big stumbling block for the majority of people when they're starting to sell their work. They kind of look at it and they're like, I don't know, $15. They kind of throw a number out there. And I did that actually myself. The first piece I sold it for like $50, and it was a really big, you can't even see how big it was in the video screen. It was a really big piece. And I think if I were to go back in time at the level I was at then, and it'd be my first piece, I would have sold it for like at least $300, and I sold it for $50 because I just didn't know. And so I think that it's really important to learn about this stuff when you first start selling, about the pricing before you jump in and start putting price tags on everything, because you'll feel a lot better and you won't have as many regrets, and it'll be more effective too. You sell better when your prices make sense. So I have this great pricing video series, and Tirza will put it below the video for us, a link to it, and you can watch at your leisure whenever you like, and one video at a time. They're split up into nice little chunks so that it won't take you too long if you have things to do, and you can take them with you, all that sort of good stuff. And it should help you get started if you're interested in selling your work.
Awesome. Yeah, so the link will be below us. And I just want to close it out real quick and say thank you to Laura for taking the time to share her heart with us. And so thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, it's been super fun. What?
I hope it helped.
Oh, yeah, totally. This has been a great interview. Yeah, super, super fun. I'm